If parents are detained and they have their minor children at home, they need to have the legal documents in place so that their children aren't transferred into the custody of the government. They actually can go with like trusted family family members that can take care of them or alternatives, right? So having those things in place around custody with your children is important. Then immigrant families are hardworking. They own homes, they own cars, have their bank accounts, and if they're detained, they can't go ahead and access their money from detention.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today, this episode is dedicated to all of the beautiful people that listens to the podcast and also for those of you that have or are immigrants. And we want to shine the light on the resources that are available for you to be financially prepared for anything, right? So my conversation today is with Abogada Grande. Welcome to the show. How are you?
And I'm really happy to be here.
I'm excited to have you here with us. So tell us a little bit about the who are you, how did you become an attorney, and where are you located?
Yes. So I am the daughter of immigrants from El Salvador. I was born and raised in Los Angeles in this city called San Pedro. And at a young age, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. There was a show that used to come out called Saved by the Bell. And my favorite character on that show is Jessie because she's really smart and like opinionated. And I remember there was a career day episode where she talked about being a lawyer, and it just sounded really cool. And I just started saying it. And, I manifested my future because, once I figured out what a lawyer was, I was thought, oh, yeah, I could do this. And now I own my own law firm where we primarily serve immigrant families. And we do so in the areas of immigration and bankruptcy law. And, our commitment is to really make a difference in the community so we can make quality legal services accessible to immigrant families.
And I love that so much. And I want to say, my sister used to watch that show like every week. Like she was like, I'm not helping anybody. I'm going to watch the show. And so I exactly know what show you're talking about
Yeah.
100%. So thank you for that reference. Now, you said something important that I feel like it's a barrier for those that are not familiar with how to work with an immigration lawyer. You talk about accessibility. How does that look like at your practice?
Yes. So one of the things that we do is we do payment plans to be able to support those families that don't have access to pro bono services because they just make, just too much to be able to qualify. The way that we found that really works is being able to look at, what we do for us as we look at what does it take as a business to be able to provide that quality legal support. And then how can we have it so that people like my parents growing up are able to access that. And we found that that's really been supportive of our community. Our like immigrant families are just so hardworking and so committed to like doing right with the people that they work with. So it's just really worked because we were able to serve our community and also, we get to make a difference for the amazing team that's like working with the family.
100%. And immigration is a topic that has been talked about for years, as you know, right? Like there's a whole history on immigration. But right now, we need to bring this conversation because there's so much happening in our community. And so I want to ask you, what are some of the things that people can do to get prepared? Because I feel like a lot of people are just waiting, which in my opinion is very risky, just like not looking at your money. But what are some things that people should be doing to be informed?
I think the first thing is to actually talk to people who have the knowledge of our immigration laws to be able to see like where someone is at. I find exactly what you said that a lot of people are in denial. They just, they have the thought, "Oh, I'm just going to wait this out and things will get better." And now I've been an attorney for like almost 16 years, I think over 16 years, and immigration law just hasn't gotten better over the the years. there just keep on being additional roadblocks, and sometimes they're little roadblocks, and sometimes they're like huge ones that we're seeing now. And the first step is to know what reality is. And I always tell people that it's good to talk to one or two, maybe three people that are knowledgeable in this area of immigration law, because one of the things that I do see is that people will talk to their cousin or their Theo or their neighbor, or they'll talk to a legal doc preparer person or a notario, but they don't actually talk to immigration attorneys that are doing this work on a day-to-day basis to find out, are there options, and if there are options, what's the pathway to be able to legalize their status. So I would say that that's the first step. No, can something be done right now? And if something can be done, then what does that pathway look like? Because that determines what the next steps are at that point.
In the work that you do, abogada, why do you think people don't take the initiative to talk to an immigration attorney? In addition to, of course, maybe I don't want to assume, but funding or investing, because it's not an expense, right? No es un gasto, es una inversión. Is there anything else you see that maybe prevents our community from seeking that advice?
Yes, I think that there's a lot of fear and also mistrust of lawyers, which, I can understand. There are unfortunately a lot of bad actors in the legal field as a whole. Lawyers don't have the best reputation, right? There's all those lawyer jokes out there. And it's hard to know who to trust, especially because there are people in these spaces that are really good at sales, they're really good at marketing, but they don't actually know what they're doing. So I think that fear of getting taken advantage of or being placed in a worse situation is one of the biggest barriers for people to take action.
Now, you mentioned something that really caught my attention. What are some of those big changes within the law that you see that perhaps weren't happening before?
So you're not in any process, but you, of your own volition, you are applying for something in order to get an immigration benefit. And then there are place and removal proceedings where the government is actively taking action to remove someone from the United States. One of the biggest shifts is that people who have filed affirmative applications that are getting denied, in the past, if an application got denied, it was kind of like the end of it. Now, when a case is denied, they are filing notifications to place people in removal proceedings. They've implemented policies that make it more challenging to stop a deportation or a removal. So now it's just things are moving very quickly. And for removal proceedings, to have a good chance of stopping the removal proceedings, you definitely need an attorney.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. What are some of the things that immigrant families need to have in place should this happen, right? Like this conversation makes me think of the peace of mind fund that you built up for when you need it.
That peace of mind fund is definitely like a big important piece for the things that people need to prepare financially. Because, for example, if parents are detained and they have their minor children at home, they need to have the legal documents in place so that their children aren't transferred into the custody of the government. They actually can go with like trusted family family members that can take care of them, or alternatives, right? So having those things in place around custody with your children is important. Then immigrant families are hardworking. They own homes, they own cars, have their bank accounts, and if they're detained, they can't go ahead and access their money from detention. So being able to have the right legal documents so that in case something were to happen, they have a trusted person that they can talk to in order to be able to withdraw money, to hire an attorney if there's a bond granted and someone's detained, so that the bond can be paid. And then, having a plan, because it's challenging to find work when you're undocumented, and, it's just gotten progressively worse. We see our street vendors that are hardworking and they're no longer able to go out and do their day to day work. So, the other thing I would say is working with their communities to come up with a plan so that they can have just some money stashed away in these situations, because unfortunately the government has given a lot of funding to immigration enforcement, and there's a higher likelihood of someone that we know being impacted. And yeah, it's important to
Yeah.
have.
And you're in an area where you see that probably every day where communities are being impacted. So I just want to pause for a moment because I feel like this was exceptionally very well delivered for the information, but I also want to acknowledge that it can also feel heavy for the listener or for the viewer. And so I want to pause to thank you for the work that you're doing. I want to come back to you and your parents because you talk about your parents and the work that you're doing was also probably just inspired by Say by the Bell. But there are so many mujeres that are also dreaming of becoming immigrant lawyers. And, of course, watching or listening to this episode, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, she looks like me. So I can totally do this too. What has been some of the biggest lessons about your career that you're like, wow, this has totally been great in a good way, right? Like positive things about the profession.
Yeah, yes. I think I would say one of the most rewarding things about the work that I do is exactly what you're talking about, being able to um, be someone that when other, I'll do a couple of months ago, I went to my old middle school to do a career day presentation, about being a lawyer and being able to have these conversations and see students that look like me or came from similar backgrounds and being able to say, yeah, you can be a lawyer. I wasn't the loudest person in class. I was very shy and quiet up until, well, I still think I'm quiet, but I wasn't like just that person always out there doing speech or things like that, and then sharing with people that you don't have to have a particular personality, you don't have to have a certain background. If being someone who advocates for others is something that's meaningful, anyone can do it. It really is just a matter of believing that you can and just taking consistent actions. They don't have to be big actions, but really actions that move you forward towards that dream if it's being a lawyer or, any other field. But that's one of the most rewarding things for me, being able to mentor other other Latinas, other young girls, first gen, to pursue their dreams. I would
I
say that.
love that. I love this so much. Now, with your practice, because you talk about street vendors and immigrant families, w- who is your ideal client? And when I'm talking about ideal client, of course, we're like, the client was like, I don't want to have this conversation with an immigration lawyer, but I believe that is so important for us to get that education. Yeah, tell us about a little bit about the type of clients or the families that you serve. Is it just people that come from low income, or do you also support the high achievers, high earners that come from elsewhere?
But we have like a wide array. I would say the commonalities that I find for all of our clients, whether they're clients that are in their 50s and 60s or they're in their 20s, is that they're hard workers. They are kind. Kindness is really important to us. We everything that we do at our firm, we're committed to bring empathy to the legal work, the legal profession. And we like to work with people that are aligned with, want to be a contribution to their family. Other people have these they want to contribute out to the larger community and that they have integrity. I think when I look at all of our clients, I have 'cause I'm always so happy to see them because they're so giving, to the people that they care about, and we like to be able to support them to be able to do that without that fear, that they live with until they have their status.
I love that so much. And this is why we connected, by the way, because I was like, yeah, this mujer is all about values. And yeah, just watching you also build your practice and doing it in a way that is intentionally helping our community, but also you're not afraid to say, hey, I've invested, in my education. So yes, I am gonna open up the payment plan, but I'm still going to be asking for the value that I bring, which I believe that is just a lot. And I love that for you. Now I want to ask you about how did you find the community to help you stay, I mean, just showing up with everything that is happening. And I feel like this is just my personal view. Of course, I don't work in your industry, but what I've seen is that these type of waves come and go every 4 years. So how do you keep the community to keep you grounded in the work that you do?
And that's a really great question. I think that's one of the things that I was kind of grappling with, thinking about as we saw backtrack to 2024, like right after the election, because one of the things that I realized before in the first term of the current administration, that I didn't spend a lot of time around self care and making sure that I was grounded, and it impacted everything. I mean, we did great work for our clients, but it wasn't until afterwards that I reflected back and I realized like, oh my gosh, I was exhausted. I wasn't making like the best like hiring decisions. I wasn't attracting the kind of clients that we attract now because I was, just in survival mode. And I think one of the things that I saw is really looking at what are intentional practices I can put into place to be able to continue to do this work. And community, I mean, I think that's like the biggest thing, having the people around me that inspire me, like being on this, having this conversation with you. Like you're super inspiring, the work that you're doing in the community. And like this is the thing that like refreshes me. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, we're in different spaces, but we're all doing our part to make the world a little better." So, having these kind of conversations is definitely one of the things that keeps me grounded, making sure I'm spending time with my loved ones and making sure my priorities are clear. And for me right now, my priorities are, to spend time with my loved ones, to do really good work, and to make sure that I'm financially taking care of myself and my loved ones. Because if we're not doing that for ourselves, then we can't be that resource for the community. And it's kind of like counterintuitive because I'm always like, I just want to give to the community, but like the reality is that we have to make sure that we do everything we can to have integrity for ourselves so that we can be that space for
Yes,
others and be leaders.
100%. And I think when it comes to giving to community, it's hard to also set boundaries, right? Because we just love it so much. I mean, I went a couple of weeks where I didn't publish the podcast, not because I didn't have content, but just because I wanted to give myself the gift of I just need to be with where I am right now and not have to do anything else. I was talking to my team and I said, hey, listen, we're all going through something, so let's just pause what we're doing. And that is also wealth, right? Like the ability to pause, to say, I need a reset. And I really, really loved how you had the realization of I also need to help myself financially because it is so ingrained in us to just give and help. But I have this phrase that I've been using since probably 2019, where I always say our community can't be what they can't see, right? And when they see a lawyer who is helping but she's also wealthy and she's also having this time freedom, then that sets the precedence for another mujer to say, I want to be a lawyer and I also want the wealth and I also want the freedom and I also want to build the team that is going to help me create that stability that I need so I can be with my family. And everything that we do is money, right? Like money is not separate from immigration, it's not separate from relationships, it's not separate from mental health. I mean, everything we do is about money. And I always say, if you don't want to talk about money, then why are you working? You go to work for an impact and yes, also a paycheck, right? So I think, well, I know this, not I think, like I know money is at the center of it, but we also have to use money, which comes to my next question is we also have to use money to redirect money back to those people that need it. So, what is maybe a couple of ways that we can support immigrant families right now so we can fund that money back to where it's needed? And if you have any resources or organizations that you support, or if you're like, no, if you want to sponsor a family, send me a message. You can also do that right now.
Yeah, I mean, and that's such a great conversation. Like I've been having, with some of the advocacy work that I do, having these kind of conversations because like, I mean, everything that you just said, I think one of the biggest ways is to like there's an organization called Immigrants Rising, and one of the things that they do is they support immigrant entrepreneurs to build businesses. And one thing that I never planned to have my own business. That was like the last thing that I thought I was gonna do. But I really see entrepreneurship as an access to build wealth and, our community, not just having a business and working hard at the business, but like scaling businesses. I think they do study after studies that they talk about how the Latina community has like a high percentage of owning businesses. But when you see the revenue, there's like a big disparity between us and like, predominant communities. And I think programs like through organizations like that are really critical. There's also organizations in the community that I know, like Cheerla is doing really great work. The ACLU is doing a lot of work to do appeals, which are critical because those organizations file appeals so that to stop some of these harmful things that are happening.
Yes. And you mentioned two organizations that we support and that we also love the leadership. I don't think I've ever shared this before on the podcast, but one of the ways that we love to give is not just because of the organization name sounds cute, but because the organization is actually very accountable for the results that they are really delivering to the community. And Cheerla is one of them where they say, we're gonna do these and here's the KPIs and here's how we're doing it. And I truly value the leadership that they have, in addition to many other organizations that we support. But personally, that's something that for me, it's very impactful because they're not just asking, they're saying, if you give me 100 or 1,000, here's how I'm going to use it. And by the way, in a couple of months, I'm going to show you the receipts. Do you only serve communities in California or do you serve everyone everywhere? Or how does that work for you? This is your time to ask for the client.
Yes. So we serve clients everywhere. We have clients in Washington, we have clients in Washington, D.C., New York, everywhere. That's one of the things about immigration law that's different from, for example, family law or probate is that it's federal law. So an attorney, as long as they're licensed as an attorney in one of the states in the country, they can help clients anywhere. So people they can follow us on our social media, get on the law firm. They can send us a DM message there, or they can always call us. Our main number is 310-713-2334. And then, we will let people know, if it's something that we think we can help you with or not. Where one of the one of the things that I find is so important is that people know and understand if there isn't anything that can be done, why? And if there is something that can be done, why? Because it's important that you understand why you qualify for something or why you don't. So if someone else tries to tell you that you can, and you've already been told why you can't, you're able to ask the thoughtful questions so that someone doesn't try to take advantage of you and vice versa. So, yeah, that's how they
I
can.
love that. I just really see a lot of the educator side of you where you obviously, you are an attorney and you work hard for it. But I also see the side of let me educate you on what is going on with your case. I think this is why investing in the right help is so important because I mean, I personally have seen all kinds of advice on social media and that is just genetic information, right? Similar to investing, where people are like, oh, well, buy this thing. And you're like, wait, but that doesn't apply to me because you don't know me. And I think that in that sense of the immigration, access to the information also is, it's not for you. Like it doesn't apply to your case. I mean, I do like learning from other venues where they're sharing information, but sometimes it's like, that doesn't apply to everybody. And so investing in knowledge and access is how we create the ownership that you were talking about, where entrepreneurs can continue to grow their business. I mean, we always give back, right? Because we don't forget that we were those little kids that grew up low income, and we don't forget where we come from. So I just want to say thank you for this conversation. It was lovely. It was way overdue. And I cannot wait to see where you go and give you a big hug when I come to your side of the state. Yeah, when I come and just send you an invitation to join me on what I have coming up next, which is the book.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much. I was so happy to connect and be here. Thank you.
Thank you again.